those who did what. Some of them we already punished. Others are under full investigation.
KDF soldiers sacked for looting at the Westgate Mall.
IEBC CEO James Oswago is arrested over electronic kids tender.
The ROM statute itself has provided this specific mechanism for purposes of a deferral.
Plus, court confusion on push for deferral of ICC cases.
Also on KTN Prime, expatriate beggars from Tanzania are busted in Mombasa.
This is KTN Prime with Lindah Oguttu and Kitili.
A very good Tuesday evening to you. It is the 29th day of October 2013. Many thanks for joining us on your most qualified news bulletin in town, KTN Prime.
Indeed, we have a comprehensive bulletin for you. We begin with Westgate, and the Kenya Defence Forces now admit that some of their soldiers looted during the Westgate attack in Nairobi.
Now, 2 soldiers have been dismissed over looting, while a third is under investigation.
The Chief of Defence Forces, General Julius Karangi, maintains that a majority of the soldiers only took water from the Nakumatt supermarket.
Now, with authority from the officer in charge of the operation. KTN's Rita Tinina reports on the KDF's defense over the Westgate Mall.
CCTV footage of KDF soldiers walking away from the Nakumatt supermarket with shopping bags following the Westgate terror attack has put the disciplined force on the spot with allegations that the soldiers engaged in looting. The military top brass sought to clear the air.
At around 4.
At a press conference, the national security team gave a blow-by-blow account of how security personnel responded to the terror attack. And here came the first admission that some soldiers may have let their guard down.
Yes, there might have been 1 or 2 soldiers who did take something.
Last week, the Chief of Defence Forces, General Julius Karangi, said the soldiers were only carrying water. It turns out that they had the authority of the officer in charge of the Westgate operation.
Because they requested. They were thirsty, they were dehydrated, there was smoke, they were engaged with the enemy.
KDF admits that some soldiers took more than just water. 2 soldiers, Victor Otieno and Victor Ashiundu, have been dismissed over looting, while Isaiah Wanjala is under investigation.
But it is nothing that is systematic. It is nothing that is institutionalized.
KDF spoke as one soldier and his wife were arrested in Nakuru, allegedly with 4 mobile phones and 2 cameras suspected to have been looted from the Westgate Mall. The 2 were held for the better part of the day at the Nakuru Central Police Station as the soldier prepares to face a court-martial. The goods have since been dispatched to Nairobi to establish if indeed they were taken from Westgate.
Did we find him guilty today, tomorrow? He will go the way of the others.
KDF is also dismissing claims that there were divisions among security teams in the Westgate response and says investigators combing through the debris at Westgate have recovered 4 bodies suspected to be those of terrorists. Rita Tinina, KTN.
That story by Rita is the basis of our big question tonight, and we ask you, should Kenya Defence Forces Chief General Julius Karangi now apologize to Kenyans for the actions of some of the KDF officers at Westgate?
Of course, the general there saying his officers only took water from the Nakumatt supermarket, of course, with authority from the officer in charge. Let us know what you think. You can tweet us at KTN Kenya, at Kitili, at Lindah Oguttu. You can send an SMS to the number 22155. We'd love to read some of your opinions during this bulletin.
Moving on now, 3 of senior officials of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC have been arrested in connection with the procurement of voter electronic kits.
IEBC Chief Executive Officer James Oswago, a Commission Secretary and Director will be formally charged in court tomorrow with several counts of abuse of office and failure to comply with procurement laws.
KTN's Dennis Onsarigo with the latest from Integrity House.
Okay. James Oswago has been a man at the center of a troubled commission emerging from the hotly contested general elections. The IEBC's executive officer, the commission secretary, a director and a procurement manager were arrested Tuesday afternoon at a workshop in Naivasha after weeks of investigations by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. The investigations stem from the procurement of the electronic voter identification kit that failed during the March 4th general elections. The kit acquired before the general election simultaneously collapsed, forcing the electoral body to revert to manual voting, pushing the tallying of the election results into 4 consecutive days. Kits sent to far-flung areas lacked power backups. Some had chips missing, with other election centers reporting a near total collapse. The IEBC had assured the public that the devices had been tested and were in optimal working condition.
We create room for other greater things which will follow.
The Ethics Commission had recommended the prosecution of the election officials for failing to comply with the procurement laws in the 1.3 billion kits tender and payment made to a South African company. Officials preparing a charge sheet against the 4 IEBC officials have told KTN they could face up to 4 counts of charges when they are formally charged in court Wednesday. Oswago becomes the first senior IEBC official to face charges in the first-term IEBC. For a man who cut an image of a no-nonsense administrator, the one-time enforcer of the law now finds himself at the center of a court case, one that is likely to thrust the troubled election body back into the limelight. Denson Sarigo, KTN Prime.
Let's now look at an issue that will affect each and every Kenyan who owns a television set. Confusion has rocked the government's plan to switch off analog television broadcasts that was set to begin in December. Earlier, Information Secretary Ezekiel Mutua sent messages to media houses suggesting that the Cabinet Secretary had agreed to push the digital migration date to June 2014. Mutua's text message followed a meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and media owners during which the digital migration program was discussed. The media owners had informed the President of their concerns regarding the Cabinet Secretary's handling of the program, but late this evening, Dr. Matiang'i disowned the message from Mutua, insisting he does not transact policy issues through text messages. According to Dr. Matiang'i, the December date has not been changed. We're keeping an eye on that story for you, and of course we'll keep following it up for you as well. Let's shift our focus to the International Criminal Court and the ICC proceedings in the case against Deputy President William Ruto and journalist Joshua Arap Sang will not adjourn this Friday as had earlier been expected. The Deputy President will now have to be at The Hague until the next week on Friday after the chamber judges extended hearing dates to accommodate all witnesses currently at The Hague. The 6th prosecution witness continued with his testimony. He said during a rally on December 5th, 2007, the Deputy President referred to Mwai Kibaki supporters as witches. The prosecutors, however, asked to go into a private session before the witness could be questioned further on his comment. Witness 268's testimony is expected to directly link the Deputy President to the crimes against humanity he is accused of. The Deputy President has, however, not been physically present in the court in the last 2 days. The witness has been on the stand. The court granted him limited excusal from the hearings while President Uhuru Kenyatta attends a regional meeting in Rwanda.
Let's move to a shocking story from the coast, where the Mombasa City Inspectorate has busted a human trafficking cartel involving disabled persons from Tanzania. At least 6 people have been arrested. They are alleged to have lured their victims to Mombasa, where they begged for a living. KTN's Ferdinand Omondi reports.
Subdued persons with disabilities huddled at a corner of a house in Mwembe Tayari, Mombasa. They are part of a larger group of disabled persons who say they were lured to Kenya with the promise of aid and a better life, only to end up as contemporary slaves forced to beg on Kenya streets to survive.
Ni kama alijitokeza tu kuku. Akasema jamani, mimi naweza wa kuwasaidia. Tukamsikiliza, akasema nitawafulia nguo. Chochote kile mtataka humu ndani nitawasaidia.
The trail starts in Tanzania, where the suspected syndicate leader, a woman who is herself disabled, allegedly lures them to Kenya with the promise of wheelchairs, financial aid and a home. But once they get to Mombasa, they are all huddled into this house and stripped of their dignity. Every morning they crawl down 2 floors of a stairway and are dispatched to several locations on the streets to beg for alms.
Wako wengi, wengine ni wako vibaya sana. Waka saa zingine maji inajaa hapo chini, wanashindwa kupita. Unateseka hapo stairs, saa zingine ukiwapata kama wamejaa stairs inabidi usimame kwanza wapite sababu wanaenda pole pole.
These men arrested, 6 Tanzanians, are the suspected agents allegedly marshaled to monitor the beggars and collect every coin they collect. They say for every 500 shillings collected, the boss takes 300. And the beggars are left with a balance of 200 shillings. In other words, you may be touched enough to offer the seemingly helpless people money, but the real beneficiaries are more than capable.
Tukisharejea ile pesa ukipata ni kutokana na mpango ya Mwenyezi Mungu, ukipata hata kidogo.
Ile aliyokuleta ndio inayompatia tu. Kila mtu anakuwa na bosi wake.
The balcony of the house is packed with wheelchairs donated by well-wishers. They may receive them but are never allowed to use them because a crawling beggar attracts more sympathy. What alarmed the inspectorate is that at least 25 such beggars sleep here every night. All of them are from Tanzania and none of them had valid traveling documents.
Mimi naona ni kama ambaye idara ya uhamiaji ni kama ambaye katika zile border post ni kama ambaye wanalala kidogo. Ndio kaona ikiwa siku 2-3 timu yangu ya Inspectorate Department Mombasa County Government tumefanya uchunguzi na tumepata walemavu wengi wanaitwa kwa mabasi wakiletwa Mombasa County.
A hunt is on for the mystery woman and her suspected accomplices. Both sets of people were detained. The suspected agents will be charged with human trafficking, while the beggars will answer for being in the country illegally, among other charges. It is a disheartening case of able-bodied people taking advantage of the disabled to prey upon the unsuspecting hand that giveth. However, their illegal presence in the country poses a more difficult question. How did they pass through Kenya's borders, which are manned by the Immigration Department? Ferdinand Omondi, KTN, Mombasa.
Ferdinand Omondi there reporting from Mombasa. Let's bring you back to Nairobi. The chairperson of the National Land Commission, Mohamed Swazuri, today sharply differed with the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Charity Ngilu, over the appointment of Peter Kahuho as Acting Director General for Lands. Swazuri dismissed Ngilu's claims that there were consultations over the appointment. Ngilu told the Senate Committee on Lands that she has since degazetted Kahuho's appointment as Director General for Lands.
Last week, Cabinet Secretary for Lands Charity Ngilu had a difficult time convincing members of the National Assembly Committee on Lands over her appointment of Peter Kahuho as Acting Director General for Lands. The appointment raised controversy, with Ngilu being accused of sidestepping the Public Service Commission. This week, members of the Senate's Committee on Lands also sought clarification on the controversial appointment. Ngilu sharply differed with the chairperson of the National Lands Committee over Kahuho's appointment.
It's the chairman himself who actually instructed in my presence his CEO and his legal officer, director, to facilitate and to ensure that this gazettement is done.
That we consulted, yes, on the case of Mr. Kahuho's appointment, but we never agreed, we disagreed. I think if we were to bring this matter as a popularity contest, Mr. Chairman, it can go on and on.
Did we make up on it? Okay. You hear?
In private.
So we want us to make it in public.
If you can, do it.
Given the public attention on Kahuho's appointment, Ngilu told the Senate that she has since reversed the appointment following advice from the Public Service Commission. Ngilu has also differed with the National Land Commission on who has the power to sign titles and leases for land.
I thank CIC because they have written to us and they have written to the chairperson telling them that they have no authority whatsoever to sign titles.
You seal this by signing the seal of the commission. That is why we gazetted the chairman and the CEO to be the appropriate people to sign the seal.
In its report, the National Assembly's Lands Committee says the law is very clear that powers to sign titles is the preserve of the National Land Commission and not the Cabinet Secretary. Section 12 of the Land Registration Act stipulates that land titles shall be issued by the land registrar appointed by the Public Service Commission. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
Meanwhile, the Code Coalition has opposed the plot by the Jubilee Alliance to get Kenya to withdraw from the Rome Statute. The opposition, however, flip-flopped on the deferral motion just moments after appearing to cede ground for a conditional deferral. Code promptly issued another contradictory statement. KTN Samogina reports.
The Code Coalition has poured cold water on a bipartisan push on the ICC that had been adopted by a section of ODM and Jubilee Alliance members. The opposition party froze a deferral proposal, but with a caveat.
For the record, CORD has not changed its position on this matter, and we are prepared to have a structured and constructive engagement with both the government and the international community within the context of the Rome Statute to ensure that victims get justice and impunity is punished.
In its application, the African Union invoked Article 16 of the Rome Statute that provides for the deferral. So is CORD in essence backing a deferral of the two Kenyan cases given that they were done procedurally?
It is to be noted that the Rome Statute itself has provided this specific mechanism for purposes of a deferral.
Kusema kwamba CORD kama muungano tumeamua kuunga mkono kuhamisha mashtaka ya walioshtakiwa katika koti ya kimataifa na kuleta hapa nyumbani. Huo ni uongo mtupu. Hakuna mtu aliyezungumza hayo.
The question therefore which we are posing, if you withdraw from the Rome Statute or from the court, then how do you apply the provisions of the Rome Statute? Because that is the statute that gives you the mechanism of making a request to the Security Council. That's all that we were trying to say.
Drama marked the CORD parliamentary group meeting, with the coalition reprimanding a section of its members for championing for a bipartisan approach on the ICC with their Jubilee Alliance counterparts. Ford Kenya leader Moses Wetangula led the onslaught, criticizing the Jubilee Alliance for engaging junior members of the coalition instead of approaching the coalition's top leadership to seek their support. Protagonists of a deferral faced stiff opposition from CORD members who questioned the basis and the time frame for the deferral.
Assuming that we succeed in extending it for 5 years during the presidency of Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, what stops him from being president again after 5 years and asking for another extension for 5 years?
Kitutu Chache South MP Richard Onyonka, the main proponent of the bipartisan push, is said to have defended the deferral push because Deputy President William Ruto was once a member of the Orange Party and a friend who was in the party at the height of the post-election violence. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed is in the United States in a bid to push for the deferral of the Kenyan cases at the ICC through the United Nations Security Council. The Cabinet Secretary traveled to the US on Sunday to link up with the high-level Africa Union Executive Council, seeking to meet members of the UN Security Council over Kenya's deferral request.
A standoff within the CORD coalition has resulted into a flopped parliamentary group meeting, with the CORD rejecting the much touted bipartisan approach on the ICC matter. CORD instead retreating to its earlier position, objecting to the deferral bid, saying that government should engage the opposition on the deferral motion. Samugina, KTN at Orange House, Nairobi.
You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you for staying with us. Of course, our big question tonight focuses on Kenya Defence Forces. They have indeed admitted that some of their soldiers looted during the Westgate attack in Nairobi. That forms the basis of our big question we're asking you. Should General Julius Karangi now apologize to Kenyans for the actions of some of the soldiers at Westgate?
Let's take a look at some of your comments. Dennis Opanga says, we knew we don't need an apology but resignation. No hope on them.
Francis is raising a concern. Francis Ngigi says that KDF had gone to war without water is serious. This means they were not ready.
Well, those are some of the responses. Keep sending them to us. The number is 22155. We now take a quick break. Don't go too far. We'll be back shortly. The precision of military parades on how things work.
Mwalimu mkuu aliniharibia maisha yangu, sababu hata kama niko na mtoto, huyo mtoto anataka malezi kutoka kwangu, anataka kusomeshwa, na mimi nilikuwa natarajia nikisoma nifanye huo mtihani wangu vizuri, nitafaulu, sababu nilikuwa nafanya vizuri, alafu na nimlishe huyu mtoto wangu vizuri na apate elimu nzuri kutoka kwangu.
You're watching KTN Prime.
Thanks for staying with us here on KTN Prime. Welcome back to the program.
The members of the County Assembly say they are waiting for the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to meet their pay demands, but they will not accept pay proposal based on a job reevaluation. And according to the Constitution Implementation Commission, Kenyans have no option but to hope that the Salaries Commission strikes a deal with the MCAs, since the Constitution did not envisage such a standoff over pay. KTN's Wilson Buru reports.
County Assembly services are virtually dead as members engage the Salaries and Remuneration Commission in a tug of war over how much they should be paid. The MCAs are mainly charged with the following responsibilities: to approve the budget and expenditures of the county government, to approve borrowings of the county governments in accordance with Article 212 of the Constitution, and to approve development planning.
Madam Speaker, I urge this Honorable House to pass this motion.
However, the MCAs are following in the popular trend set by doctors, teachers, nurses and the members of parliament, downing their tools in demand for a pay hike.
Any new review of salary for county state officers will be pegged on a job evaluation. We are therefore at this point appealing to the MCAs not to waver, but for us to join hands with that team so that we can successfully carry out the job re-evaluation and move forward.
And as was largely expected, the MCAs have dismissed the SRC, saying they will not agree to be re-evaluated.
The fight the assemblies have with us, with the SRC, is an attitude issue. It's an attitude issue because they got it wrong. The whole concept of what is the role of the assembly.
The lowest paid MCA is now taking home a gross salary of just over 185,000 shillings. But the MCAs have told SREM to go back to the drawing board.
We are telling her to do is to consider, rather to use at this particular moment, that that first evaluation which was done, instead of actually wasting a lot of money again to do re-evaluation before even they implement the first evaluation.
We have about 4 or 6 Arambes that we are going to attend. All this we are doing on behalf of our people. So if somebody still wants to evaluate what we are doing, it is there. It is already in the public domain.
But with the county assemblies now lying paralyzed, the focus now is on how soon the standoff can be resolved. The CIC says the Constitution does not envisage such a standoff.
The crux of the matter is for SRC to understand the full extent, and the nature of the role of an MCA.
In any dispute, both sides must cooperate to find a solution
and the case is not different in this case as well. Wilson Buru, KTN.
As you ponder on that standoff between the SRC and the MCA, let's take you back to the KDF. Now, they inspire national pride and a sense of patriotism, more so when they are on parade during national celebrations. Join Betty Kialo. She takes us through the drills of a military parade on how things work.
The color, the numbers on the ground, the fighter jets in the skies. Uniformed servicemen and women at their best. But for this kind of celebrations to be marked in splendor, a lot of effort that you don't get to see goes into it. Ever wondered what goes behind the scenes to prepare for the national holiday celebrations? Tonight, we'll show you on how things work. It is 5 days before this year's Mashujaa Day celebrations at the Nyayo National Stadium. We arrive early morning and find the country's security forces comprising of the Navy, Army and Air Force already rehearsing for the big day. They have been here for the last 3 weeks, going through the same routine every single day to ensure clinical accuracy and, of course, that there are no mishaps as Kenya watches come the 20th.
There are some instructors who are looking at the saluting. Some are looking at the turns we are making and the moves we are making. So they are particular about those specific activities. Once they see a mistake, it's corrected. So it's repeated over and over. It's out of the repetitions that we do that the soldiers now get so much conversant with the Guard of Honor and the activities that involve the whole issue of parade.
It is an elaborate rehearsal with each force led by its own commander who oversees the drills.
They are doing a lot of rehearsals on movements, on saluting, on how they're going to present their arms, for example, if it's in a Guard of Honor.
The senior officers we talk to tell us that disciplined forces are on the field by 6 a.m. and not a second later. It is at this time that each commander conducts individual rehearsals with the force, and after at least 4 hours of practice at 10 a.m., all the troops come together to conduct an all-inclusive practice that takes another 2 hours. They march into the stadium and take position.
We have teams from the Army, from the Air Force, and from the Navy. So once we combine all these groups, it's a tri-service Guard of Honor.
The senior commanders tell me that the rehearsals are taken so seriously that the difference between the rehearsals and the actual D-Day performance is hardly noticeable. Well, except that on the actual day, they put on the ceremonial uniform. For a parade to be considered perfect, the music must also be perfect. It takes months of practice for the military band to be in sync when performing a song. I am told the music to be played is selected on the basis of the current hits or simply uplifting songs that would cut across generations. Modern or traditional patriotic songs are also popular selections. Nothing is left to chance with the music. They are expected to read and play the music, all the while marching in crisp order.
We have the tune special for bringing in the whole team. That's the Guard of Honor. And then we have 2 other tunes. That's for the inspection. And the one tune which brings the guest of honor all the way to the dais. And then we have the 7 other tunes for the marching contingents.
While this is going on, other preparations are taking place. Inside the stadium, the lawns are trimmed as the flags are hoisted around the stadium. After the rehearsals, The last lap of honor is done as the troops, including other forces, leave the stadium. On the material day, everything comes to play. However, something that you may not know is that in the event an officer becomes sick during the parade, other officers referred to as spares take over their place for a smooth transition that you may not even notice while watching the parade.
We get some spares who are actually behind the parade. So if a soldier falls down, which is so rare anyway, this assistance or the spare soldiers comes in, takes his place.
And that is what goes on behind the scenes to prepare for national holiday celebrations. Betty Kialo, how things work.
Right, so the government has admitted that there is a possibility of a critical shortage of condoms at public facilities, which could lead to new HIV and AIDS infections. This year's budget did not provide for the procurement of condoms and other reproductive health programs, but the Cabinet Secretary for Health is seeking to assure Kenyans that the government has taken measures to avert the impending shortage. Take a look at this story by Kitili.
Reduced funding in the healthcare system seems to have finally caught up with the government. While commercial condoms that cost between 150 to 300 shillings will still be available, government-procured subsidized condoms that are cheaper may not be stocked in retail outlets and family planning clinics as of January next year.
Because, previously we didn't have a budget for the past 2 years, for condoms. It has been funded by donors.
So there is an old couple somewhere in Texas who is paying for the family planning pills that we use in Kenya. And you have to ask yourself, what happens if that couple changes their mind about providing us with those pills? What happens to the people here in this country?
If at all they are going to relax, actually the spread of HIV and the AIDS disease is going to be held that high.
They should make resources available and do whatever is required to benefit every Kenyan mwananchi.
The impending lack of condoms in 2014 is just one of the issues among a myriad of issues plaguing Kenya's reproductive health system. And it all boils down to funding, and health experts are now telling the government, we told you so. As it stands, 30% of women in marriages do not have access to family planning methods. Men and women living below the poverty line are more at risk.
If the poor still have high fertility and they have high family sizes, it means that we are proportionately increasing a larger number of people that live below poverty line, such that our efforts to reduce poverty will not happen.
According to the Population Studies and Research Institute, 6,000 women die each year from pregnancy-related complications occasioned by the lack in the healthcare system. 1 in every 5 girls under the age of 18 is forced into motherhood by various circumstances. More often than not, it's poverty-stricken adolescents who end up being pregnant at an early age, some as young as 14.
This is a girl who's getting married. When you get married, there's expectation from society. You're supposed to have children. So that means you're getting pregnant. And a young girl, your body is not prepared to have a baby. So what happens when you get pregnant? That process of just going through the 9 months and delivering the baby can lead to your death.
Experts have faulted the government for not treating the provision of contraceptives as a national issue and instead leaving reproductive health at the mercy of donor funding. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
Right, so the Kenyan economy is performing way below its potential. Let me bring in my colleague Joy Doreen Mbira, who will be bringing you the day's business news. Joy?
Thanks a lot, Linda. And just like you mentioned, the economy, or the country's economy, is performing way below its potential. And this and more is coming up, but also on KTN Business Today.
Transport and Infrastructure Ministry warns PSB bus assembling firms to improve quality or risk being blacklisted.
Second day of the week, I'm Joy Doreen Bira. Let's do business. Companies engaged in assembling and building passenger service vehicles have been put on notice by the government to improve on the quality of their work or be blacklisted. Phil Keitani kicks off tonight's KTN Business.
It is events such as these that have pushed the government to focus on local assembly companies in the country on the quality of bodyworks that goes into the assembly of buses plying the Kenyan roads.
The vehicle bodybuilding industry in Kenya is not fully regulated, and only a handful of firms are registered. This has led to emergence of ill-equipped firms that are in the bodybuilding industry.
Of late, we've seen parts of vehicles flying over, the vehicle tearing into pieces because of, unscrupulous bodybuilders, coming up with bodies that outwardly could be attractive, but cannot be able to sustain any kind of impact.
As part of the streamlining the PSV sector, Kamau says they are also working on legislations to be adhered to when constructing such buses. The irregular construction, among them buses having roof carriers, he says leads to accidents due to destabilization.
This is important to avoid instances where buses with road carriers on top of the are prone to tipping over when overloaded, as happened in the case in Inturiri.
The public service industry in Kenya is considered very lucrative, and with the passenger travel demands on the increase, a number of firms have ventured into bodyworks. These are seeing basic benchmarks thrown out. With the rush to beat demand remaining king, it is reasons why the government is saying it will no longer be business as usual. The minister spoke when he officiated at the General Motors East Africa launch of a 100 million shilling investment center on bus body technology. The facility will also serve as a training ground for local vehicle bodybuilders. Philip Keitani, KTN Business.
The Kenyan economy is performing way below its potential. If well nurtured though, World Bank analysts indicate it will be able to make the proverbial takeoff. Michael Karanja has more.
Agriculture, tourism, manufacturing and the financial services sector have remained the main drivers of economic growth. But over time, the country's economy has experienced a mixed bag of results, with economic growth not matching the potential of these sectors.
If you look at the export performance of Kenya, Kenya's export performance actually declined from the 70s. There's been a 75% decline in the share of global exports since 1970 up to now. The manufacturing sector had shown promise in the last decade. It's growing about 3.9%. But most of these exports, about 50%, are in the regional markets where Kenyan exports are under increasing competition from other players.
The impact from our traditional sources of growth continues to dwindle, while little is done to exploit emerging opportunities. The ICT revolution, proceeds from oil and gas exploration, as well as streamlining of the mining sector, is expected to boost revenue collection and have a significant impact on economic growth. But all this can only be possible if governance structures in the country are streamlined.
The institutional assessment, Kenya has a score of 3.9, is the highest in Africa. But within that, when you look at the public sector governance aspect of that measure, it is well below a number of African countries and globally as well.
Just to highlight the contrast and equality, Nairobi and Mombasa, with roughly 10% of the country's population, generate a third of the country's GDP. Kajiado, the country's richest county, has a poverty headcount index of 12%.
We should not assume that to cross the infrastructure gap, the government has to continuously increase debt levels. PPP is coming to solve the problem because we can package some of the projects, and actually equity is going to be an answer.
For the country's economies, perhaps is the ideal time to develop markets and easing access that will stimulate demand and increasing household incomes. Michael Karanja, KTN Business.
Only 2 million people are employed in the formal sector of Kenya's private sector, despite the sector being well developed based on regional standards. On the other hand, the informal sector accounts for about 9 million of those employed. This is according to the African Development Bank outlook on Kenya's private sector.
Kenya's private sector plays a leading role in the economy, contributing 1.3 trillion shillings annually. However, the sector, the African Development Bank report says, remains volatile, with a poorly quantified informal sector supporting almost 9 out of 10 Kenyan workers.
The government needs to better understand the sector, do everything possible to encourage people to migrate from the informal to the formal sector. For those that will not migrate, that won't migrate, government also needs to make the environment for them to operate in also effective, because at the end of the day, they're still operating in Kenya. So the money has a strong spillover effect into the local economy and the consumption patterns as well.
Tourism, manufacturing, trade, transport, communication, agriculture contribute about 80% of the sector's contribution to the economy. However, though on a decline, agriculture still contributes the largest share.
The softer issues around inefficiencies, issues around bureaucracy, whether it's trying to get some license somewhere or whether it's trying to, get things through the system. Private sector has not made that secret. There's some high degree of inefficiency, allegations of corruption. These are things that we want to be able to make sure we discuss them openly and be candid about it as a way of actually dealing with it. And some of that work has started already, especially in the area of the Port of Mombasa.
While there are opportunities in the ICT, manufacturing and financial sectors, the volatility of the macroeconomic sector has tightened the cost of doing business. Among the report's recommendations to improve the sector in Kenya include improving the business and investment climate, supporting the informal sector, as well as encouraging further public-private sector cooperation. Now, we all know the Infrastructure Summit is ongoing in Kigali, Rwanda, and President Uhuru Kenyatta has made quite some very strong remarks. He says information, communication and technology is no longer a luxury but a powerful tool that will help address most of the problems facing Kenya and Africa at large. According to President Uhuru Kenyatta, Kenya will therefore leverage on the power of ICT to transform Kenya and improve the lives of Kenyans. Speaking during the Infrastructure Summit in Kigali, an interactive session for heads of state at the Transform Africa Summit, President Kenyatta said ICT was also crucial in reducing the cost of doing business, a key ingredient in economic growth. The president also cited job creation for Kenyan youth as one of the most important benefits that Kenya expects to derive from fully embracing ICT. The president observed that ICT powers economic growth and Africa must quickly integrate it in all their development policies. He emphasized that ICT is not only a strategic resource but also the foundation of every individual and institutional activity.
ICT, the challenges of corruption are greatly reduced because the interaction amongst people is removed. We are moving towards ensuring that we use ICT also for security. We have a great challenge and we're trying to emulate our Rwandese brothers and sisters by introducing laptops for our children, because we want them to begin, right from their basic education, to know that ICT is one of the greatest tools that it doesn't know rich or poor, it doesn't know tribe, it doesn't know what country you belong to, it breaks all barriers.
Finally, investors were able to trade at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, or NSE, as a result of a hitch in the automated trading system. The NSE automated trading system connects remotely to stockbroker offices, allowing them to trade from their premises. This was the second time this month that the market suffered the hitch. On October 1st, the market lost 3.5 trading hours following a technical problem with the automated trading system, which was attributed to the network. And for the second time, on the 29th of October 2013, there was no reading at the Nairobi Securities Exchange for the stocks. And with that, we've come to the end of tonight's KTN Business Today edition. Join me again tomorrow for more business. My name is Joy Doreen Bira.
KTN Business, in association with
Safaricom Business.
open new opportunities with the website and professional email address. To get access to a free website builder, visit cloud.safaricom.co.ke.
And well, that's it. And Linda, you know, at the NSC not having any reading at all for traders kind of feels like the sun didn't rise for them. I don't know how it feels for you on the other side.
Joy, I can't hear you very well clearly. I didn't really get what you said, but I'm hoping that the Kenya economy can get better with time. Of course, looking at that story that you have done, thank you so much. You're watching KTN Prime. Let's recap our top story tonight. The Kenya Defence Forces have admitted that some of the soldiers looted during the Westgate attack in Nairobi. 2 soldiers have been dismissed over looting, while a third is under investigation. Chief of Defence Forces, General Julius Karange, maintains that a majority of the soldiers only took water from the Nakumatt supermarket. Karange said the officer in charge authorized his soldiers to take the water. KDF spoke as one soldier and his wife were arrested in Nakuru, allegedly with 4 mobile phones and 2 cameras suspected to have been looted from the Westgate Mall.
You're watching KTN Prime. Many thanks for staying with us. We should take a short break, but don't go too far. We'll be back with sports, including what Yaya Toure, who has been in Nairobi, has been up to. Stay with us.
Nailed racism, Ivory Coast Yaya Toure tells FIFA.
Maseno University students on strike now beat a hasty retreat.
Nimesema sijali. Wale waniite chameleon, waniite paka, waniite buffalo, kama nyoka, lakini sitakubali.
You're watching KTN Prime.
Welcome to KTN Sport. African Footballer of the Year in Manchester City midfielder Yaya Toure says Ivory Coast World Cup ambition is unstoppable and that the Elephants will be among the 5 African countries in next year's World Cup finals in Brazil. Ivory Coast lead Algeria 3-1 from the first leg of the final qualifying match. Toure, who is in Nairobi, repeated his earlier threat this week that African players could boycott the global showdown unless FIFA tightens its rules to curb racism.
Manchester City midfielder Yaya Toure hit headlines last week after Spartak Moscow fans chanted racist remarks towards him during a Champions League game which Manchester City won 2-1. Soon after the match, Yaya did not mince his words and asked UEFA to act on the ever-ending vice.
Told the referee, but was quite disappointing, you know, and always when you're talking about that, no racism, and they continue to do that again, and I think was unbelievable and very, very sad my part, but I think if I did something, it's gonna be very nice, you know, because we want to stop, you know, some song during the crowd today was quite stupid, but.
Yaya, who's in the country as a goodwill ambassador for the United Nations against elephant poaching, says the issue of racism affects players in Europe and that he will stop at nothing in speaking his mind following his experiences.
To be honest with you, I don't want to speak about that, you know, because I already make a clear point with some of the guys who will work on that, and I hope we will go forward and try to eradicate that thing.
Toure, on the other hand, lauded the strides Victor Wanyama and Dennis Oliech have made by inspiring other upcoming players through their exploits in Europe.
I knew a lot about the Kenyan team, you know, because we already know Oliech, you know, because he was playing in French. But Victor Wanyama, yeah, I couldn't say that. Wanyama, yeah, sorry about that. He's playing now with Santon Tommy. He's doing great, you know.
At the moment, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Nigeria and Ghana have placed one foot in the final list of the 5 African teams set to take part in next year's World Cup in Brazil.
I hope the next World Cup will be here, you know, maybe 1 or 2 teams from Africa will come to the second quarterfinal or to the second semi-final, you know.
Toure is the reigning Africa Footballer of the Year, having won it back-to-back in 2011 and last year. Victor Ogale, KTN Sports.
When Manchester City play in the League Cup tomorrow, I will be hoping to catch that flight to Manchester in time. Now, Sony Sugar and FC Leopards face off tomorrow with coaches James Nando and Zedekiah Otieno having contrasting objectives. While Nando wants FC Leopards to finish second on the KPL log, Zico wants Sony to remain in the KPL as they are now walking a tightrope with the red marker right on them.
AFC Leopards could frog jam Sofapaka if they beat Sony Sugar in their game in hand on Wednesday at the City Stadium. Sony Sugar may be giant killers, but the position on the table is wanting and could be on their way to the Nationwide League. The Leopards have had an impressive ride since James Nando landed at the Den, and it'll be interesting to see how Nando and Zico rotate their scores on Wednesday. A win for Sony Sugar will take them to 11th position from 14th on the log. In an event that Sony's dropped, they have success stories to learn from Bandari FC. When the Mombasa outfit was relegated to the lower tier of the league after the 2011 season, boardroom meetings were held to understand how a team that was envied by many other teams due to their financial muscle could not perform well in top-flight football. A season later, they looked to finish amongst the top 5 teams in the league.
Ilitazama ni kwa makini sana zile sababu au mizizi ya Bandari kila mara kupanda na kushuka kupanda na kushuka.
According to the head coach, one of the things that came to the fore was a lack of proper youth structures. Rushadi Shedu, the former coach, played a big role in player recruitment, and while he no longer is with the team due to ill health, he takes the credit.
Mwaka huu ikapigwa darubini ni kwamba wachezaji wazoefu lakini wachanga ambao wameshacheza ligi kuu miaka 2-3 wana uzoefu.
Bandari is currently 6th, same points as 2012 winners Tusker, but with an inferior goal difference. Surprisingly, they are dining with the big boys of the Tusker Premier League, notably Gor Mahia, Sofapaka, AFC Leopards and Bankers KCB. For KTN Sports today, I'm Hassan Juma.
Staying in Mombasa, this weekend's KCB Mombasa Rally will lack the excitement associated with the top drivers that after 2 times former Kenya champion Alastair Kavanagh, multiple Safari Rally winner Carl Flash Tundu and veteran Azar Anwar pulled out of the event in Kilifi, set to go down this Saturday. Kavanagh, who could have been at the course to defend his title, is out of the country, while Tundu opted out due to personal reasons. This year's winner will not challenge for a top position as he will be driving a Porsche 911 in the Classic Car Cup category. Chaga will be co-driven by his Cabras Sugar Racing teammate Onkar Singh Rai. The Porsche 911 is an ex-Rinda 30 car which Onkar will be driving in the forthcoming KQ East African Safari Classic Rally. The host town will be represented by 11 drivers, among them the Hosi siblings.
To drive normal, well, they're almost normal saloon cars through things like that. If it's 4-wheel drives, it's a different issue. And then for the cars which are not 4-wheel drive, the 2-wheel drive championship would have never.
With Sevens Rugby taking the headlines in the last few weeks, the longer version of rugby, the Kenya Cup, starts this weekend, and for the first time it will feature 14 teams. Aside of the Kenya Cup, there will also be other leagues running concurrently. Defending Kenya Cup champions Nakuru is one of the 5 teams in the top flight from outside the capital. Expanded number of teams means that 95 matches will be on the card in a round-robin manner. The expansion benefited Eldoret RFC will be making their debut in the Kenya Cup, their first since being an Enterprise Cup victor way back in 1947. Mombasa returns to the fold after a 6-year absence. The Kenya Rugby Union has also introduced promotion to the 2014-2015 Kenya Cup by teams taking part in the lower league.
KTN Sports in association with Guinness.
He believes a man's name finds its meaning not in what he says, but in what he does. A name that is made of more.
Morteen Doom Power Guard introduces Kenya's first electrical liquid machine. Now, you can protect your family at a reduced price of 399 shillings for a limited period.
Right, in our news. news, and tonight, Maseno University students today took to the streets to protest runway insecurity around the institution.
This after a female student was raped over the weekend. The marauding protesters who blocked the Kisumu-Busia highway overwhelmed a contingent of anti-riot police officers, engaging them in running battles as looters took advantage of the situation.
Locals also joined the melee as they tried to protect their property from damage, worsening that situation. Crime is reported to be on the rise, particularly affecting students who reside off the Maseno campus.
The students say they have been stalked by suspected criminals.
What are we talking about? And this has given the villagers advantage. They come to our rooms, they rape our girlfriends, they beat up our sisters. You see, they slash our brothers. We cannot take this lying down.
They're just peaceful demonstration. There's nothing that we've destroyed, and you're only trying to ask the government and trying to ask the VC just to come out and assist us in the state of the security that is happening in this particular place.
From the drama in Maseno, let's now take you to a big question tonight. We were asking you, of course, it is related to the KDF, the saga that has been happening concerning the looting allegations. We were asking you, should the KDF chief General Julius Karangi now apologize to Kenyans for the actions of some of the KDF officers in Westgate?
Of course, he has admitted that some of their soldiers looted during that operation. Nancy Oguttu says KDF need to work extra hard to regain the world and Kenyans' trust back. Apology to the public may not be enough.
Kahoro says, no, we already forgot about the terrorists. Now we are attacking the police. Ironical, where are the terrorists now?
Someone using the name changed news single says, yes, fooling Kenyans for a month, then at long last he says KDF did it.
Okay, Gideon Okewe says, apologies are in order, but the number captured on CCTV were more than 3. We need the truth. Many thanks for joining us on the big question tonight, and of course on your most qualified news bulletin in town, KTN Prime. I'm Ben Kitili. Have a wonderful night.
Let's do this again tomorrow. Sleep well. I'm Lindah Oguttu.